All right. Hello, hello. We are live. Let's go ahead and post out here. Looks like we got some people waiting. Good. Good. Hey, Bruno. Hey, Jeff. Or Jeffrey, whichever one you prefer. Let's throw this out here. And we're live. Yeah, that's right. Boom. Make sure everything's hooking up right. I think I've gotten better at scheduling these now. Yeah, look. There it is. All right. So, yeah, just slight delay, but it is running. Let me know in the comments you can see and hear me okay. Looks like we got a few viewers, so yeah, let me know in the chat when you get a sec. Cool, so yeah, so some more Blueprint. Managed to close all the bugs and stuff last week. Did a few in the video, of course, did the rest afterward. So mostly got this down to enhancements. I updated the new issue template. This is actually kind of nice. Followed suit with something like Laravel, where you can actually kind of give a little guidance when people are submitting issues. So I get some richer things now, whether it's a bug with the bug report or a feature request. They're like, hey, what do you want? Show me the syntax. Show me what you expect to be generated. So that's cool. So that's been helpful, these new issues coming in. And just quickly, while people are showing up for a little backstory, let me bring up the chat, sorry. Cool. So yeah, just as a little backstory, here, anything in progress is obviously something we're going to kind of work on. Enhancements are what I consider new features. And then if I tag anything with community, it's really something that, ideally I would like to support, but I don't really consider it a high priority. And I'm kind of similar to like the good first issue, which there's only one left. This is something like I would encourage, the audience, the community to check out and try it out. It's something that maybe I won't, I don't consider a priority. For example, customizing pivot columns. Adding additional columns on the pivot, again, in my mind, kind of going back to the core principles of Blueprint, it's not really designed, and its goal is not to give you like 100% code all the time. Like, I would be writing my own framework then, and I really have no desire to do that. Laravel is covering that, very well. So again, there's no reason for me to do that. All that is to say something like adding custom pivot columns. Use Blueprint, generate the stuff automatically with the relationships, and then add the few columns to yourself to the pivot table. It's so much faster to just write those specific things yourself than to have this really, really verbose, dense syntax. YAML honestly is bad enough already, in my opinion, so I really don't want to add all these little like nuance, dash, colon, comma, syntax kind of stuff. So again, those I tag with community. I'll support them. I'll merge those PRs, but it just is not something I consider a priority. It's kind of some edge case wish list kind of stuff. So with that said, today we are going to work on the in progress. And we'll kind of start like oldest to newest. This one should be pretty easy, so I think we'll start here. So again, we're just going to work on as many of these in progress as possible. The original issue was there was no documentation. That's been solved with the documentation, and I kind of demonstrated what's available in the documentation. And kind of like we saw last week, it's a little funny. I wrote the documentation with a bit of wishful thinking, and not not everything lined up with what you could actually do. So those bugs have been fixed, but this one is actually left. And the syntax currently that you can use is resource, API, and all. And just kind of scrolling to the bottom here, I actually really don't like that. I really just want to follow suit with Laravel. Again, it's all about not having to learn anything new. When you have a resource controller in Laravel, we're really talking about either a web resource or an API resource. And so really we should just support just those two terms. Still have the shorthand. The shorthand defaults to web. That's the most common usage, I would imagine. And then, of course, you can say resource colon web or resource colon API. So right now, again, there's true, there's all, there's API. We just need to line those up. And a quick note on Blueprint 2, because it's a passive code generator, meaning that the draft file syntax that you write is really meant to be used once and then thrown away. Technically, when I make these changes, they are breaking changes, like from a semantic versioning, and that would require me to be like 2.0 because it's a 2.0 syntax. But because of that short-lived draft file, I'm comfortable in some areas like this, where maybe the documentation was already saying one thing, making this kind of quote-unquote breaking change. So I'll just be super clear about it in the PR and in the announcement. But the docs already pointed to web and API anyway, so right now new people are thinking this is a bug, and people that have already generated code, they would never write that syntax again. So yes, it's a breaking change, but we're going to tag it in the next 1.11 release, not 2.0. So feel free to gripe with me on the chat if you want, but that's kind of the plan. So let's get into the code. Let's tackle this guy. Okay, so let me bring up, let's start with the test. This is definitely a blueprint shorthand, so I think we just have blueprint test, yep. And then in here somewhere, let's go ahead and bring up blueprint side by side, and we'll close that down. And actually, somewhere in here, we have a resource all, there we go. Okay, so it parses shorthands. I believe we pass in resource all here. I really don't want to do all anymore, so we don't want to support all. Yeah, we want to support like web or nothing or whatever. So let's get this fixed up. So we're going to parse blueprint. It parses shorthands. So we have shorthands. So let's bring up the shorthands shorthands.bp. Okay, cool. So when you just say resource as a shorthand, we want to make that now not be all, it should be web. Okay, so there we go. First failing test. Let's go ahead and run all our tests. Vendor bin PHP unit. We got a failure. We're getting all, it should be web. So let's just limit all that noise to just this test. So vendor bin PHP unit. There we go. A little faster, and let's go back to blueprint and fix that up. So when you find resource, and in fact, we're not going to allow this true syntax anymore. There's really no reason for you to use that in this case. We're really just, it's just resource. You can't say resource true. So you're really, the three options are the shorthand of resource, which is going to default to web. So that's what we want to do here. So let's make this pass. All right, and now, good. Okay, and now we have another issue. It parses longhands. So again, we would never say resource true anymore. We would only allow you to say resource : web. So this is another good failure here. So let's clean that up. So we'll go backwards here. So we drove out the fact that it should default to web when it's used to shorthand. And then the longhands, which is a different draft file. So let's go longhands. This is no longer allow resource true. This should really, honestly, there's really no reason to do a longhand anymore. I don't know. What do we think? I'll leave it open to the viewers. Do we want to keep resource true? It seems a little silly. Like, why would you type? In fact, it's one less character. You would just type web or API. You would never use the quote unquote longhand. I offer them up here just so you write valid YAML, but considering you would writing the actual things less characters, to me that seems kind of like we shouldn't even do that anymore. So I'm going to drop that out of the longhands test, although that might cause issues elsewhere. So let's just see where I'm using. Again, poll the audience, let me know what you think. I'm only using it here, so it's not going to break any other test. I am of the opinion to drop it. So I'm going to drop it. We'll leave that trailing comma. Good kids. And good, we're green. Okay, so honestly, that fixes that. So that should handle the parsing of it, but I know for a fact we have more. Here we go. This controller lexer. It's gonna look for all instead of web, so we actually needed to drive that out. So let's go to our controller lexer test. And again, feel free to disagree with me if you think we should keep the resource true. Otherwise, I will take silence as agreement. Okay, cool. So we got a resource API. So somewhere in here, we probably say all. Query all. We don't say all. Oh, here we go. Resource all. So we want to say resource web. And let's not run that anymore. Let's run all our tests. Okay, so yeah, so now it's not getting any output. It should have gotten 7 actions. It got 0. So let's clean this up. All right, so there's our failure. And we already kind of know where the fix is. Let's change this back to web. And we're passing. And let's run everything. And we're passing. Great. And let's just do resource all. I don't think anywhere in the project we're doing that. Otherwise, some tests would fail. We are probably saying resource API some places. So Pascal case, custom models. So good, and that doesn't change. That was always the correct syntax. So really, long story short, we got rid of all, we changed it to web, and we got rid of kind of the resource : true longhand version because it's actually shorter to type the explicit resource type that you want by 1 character. So git add -p. All right, so we got rid of our true syntax. The shorthand is just straight resource on its own line, and that will expand to resource web. Yes, that's good. If the type is web, you get the 7 actions, and then of course changing our tests to reflect what we expect. Not sure why that changed, probably just a little line break there, and we got rid of the rest of those. So yeah, we should be saying web instead of all. Okay, cool. Git commit -m, change, let's see, use web shorthand to match resource type, or use web shorthand for resource type. Cool. Git push origin head. Probably should have made that a PR. Whoops. Still learning to manage open source repositories. Probably shouldn't have pushed directly to master, but whatever. We'll be okay. All right, cool. Let's say this is fixed then. Speaking of which, let's go back. Oops, sorry everybody. Lots of jumping around. I want to steal this commit SHA. There it is. Cool. And that way I can close this. So this has been updated to support just the web and API resource types in line with the docs. The longhand version of resource true has also been removed, as it is less to type the explicit I don't know, statement. Okay, cool. So this has been updated. Let's do this. Let's reference that. And I think that'll work. Yes, good. All right, cool. Close that issue. Nice. All right, we'll go back to in progress. What's next? Let's do this generation of Cedar. I was actually talking with Lynn yesterday, and I know he had intentions of getting to this. I don't know if we're going to build it out exactly the way him and I discussed, but I'll go ahead and get it started, just because I think it'll be a good example for me to point to when people are wanting to generate new syntax, because extending Blueprint is kind of something I thought about from day one, and I'm seeing it happen more. In fact, there was a really cool, people on Twitter have been talking about the Nova extension, which is just a perfect extension, to be honest. I might even roll it into core, but I don't want to do that too often. excuse me, too often, because I want there to be like kind of a rich ecosystem around Blueprint, just like there's a rich package ecosystem around Laravel. So, if someone's got a good package, I'd rather promote it than try to, take it over, so to speak. So anyway, again, this will be some good syntax though for people that want to. And again, the Nova one's awesome because you're already defining all these models anyway. You could really go ahead and generate the Nova resources or Nova components, to set those up with kind of a sensible default. Or of course, create your own syntax of like Nova, and then you can say very specific things and data types that you want for your Nova, dashboard, admin dashboard. So something Lynn and I discussed here, he requested an enhancement for seeders. So, we kind of went back and forth on the syntax. I thought about breaking this out as its own section, but I really think it makes sense to be underneath the models. We talked about maybe making it something where you turn this on in the configuration, but I just don't think it's the case where you would want to generate seeders for every model all the time. So we kind of landed on just this little seeders section that's top level underneath models. And, maybe it's something where, we encourage it to be listed at the top or the bottom or whatever. And given its plural syntax, it should never really override, what you have from a model name. You would never have it like, not never. It'd be pretty rare that you had an unconventional model name of plural seeders, and lowercase at that. So we'll be very, very explicit about the syntax. It has to be a lowercase seeders in kind of the model lexer. Cool. So speaking of that, let's get this started. So let's open up the model lexer, like I just said, and we'll kind of add in this rule to see that if it kind of a special case where if it finds a model name of seeders, it's going to kind of store those off somewhere else in the syntax tree to kind of do that. And again, I'm open in the comments if you think this should maybe be more of a top level syntax, and let me just show you what I mean by that. So let's just kind of open up one of these fixtures because we're going to need one anyways when we start testing. So just jump in these fixtures, definitions, and let's just kind of look at this models only or something. So right now the proposed syntax is underneath this models key is to have seeders, and then I would say something like model 1. The alternative would be something like, top level, like the controllers are, and then here you would say, model 1. So let me know your thoughts real quick for those that are following along while I get a little drink and kind of get this set up. Which kind of syntax you prefer. Again, this is the one I'm leaning towards. Let me know what you think. I hear some chit chat coming across, so let me go check the comments. Are factories enabled by default? Are factories enabled by default? Yes, factories are enabled by default. Yes, I think a factory is a more common thing, and it doesn't really have any quote-unquote side effects, in your code. It's something that eventually you would probably use. So for those reasons, I think that's kind of a different scenario where I would want to generate those by default. But I just don't think everyone makes seeders for every model. And again, for those reasons, I don't want to like clutter up, I don't want to clutter up a bunch of components all the time. Again, super easy to delete them, but blah, blah, blah. Anyway, since there is a relationship between a model and a seeder, I find under models lexer. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So Jeffrey thinks this syntax that highlighted is cool. Anybody else? Anybody else care to join in? Cast your vote. There's no wrong answer. So right now we've got a couple votes for seeders, kind of underneath models there. Again, it would be super easy to pull this out if down the road someone was like, oh, I tried to make a seeders model lowercase, and that's how I want to write my code. So yeah, let's see. So seeder, so we have a top level vote. Okay, so seeders at the top level. All right, I think Amir is voting top level. Cool. I go back and forth. I go back and forth. I need a tiebreaker. Someone let me know what you think. Top level, from a code perspective, top level would actually be a little smoother because then I would just make a seeders lexer, and that would be super, super easy. I don't have to bury it under the model lexer, but I don't want code I don't want, you never want a scenario where like the code being harder to write is the reason you took a shortcut like in a feature. Like that's not like, that's a lazy developer. I'm lazy enough. We're lazy enough as developers. Let's not be that lazy. So, okay, so, all right. Well, we're gonna go under models for now. I think there's a opportunity to again put it top level, but I think we're gonna put it under models. It's a model seeder. It's really just a one-liner. Let's go there. All right. So this is what we landed on, and just by adding this in our models only, Marius top level. Oh, we're tying it up now. I'm getting some late votes. This is no good. Top level feels more right. Damn it, Paul. Crap. Okay. Okay. Model's the simplest approach for now. I don't know. I'm getting more now. I'm going back and forth. I'm getting more top level votes. Okay, so people are saying top level now feels more right. Crap. I mean, it's really the same amount of typing, so it doesn't matter to me. It's really more of what the users want. I do agree. Top level in a way feels more right. I don't remember what my reasoning. I know we talked about it. I don't know. Let me look on what my reasoning was to have it. I'm reluctant to add syntax. If I did, it'd be its own section. See, originally I actually said let's go top level, models, controllers, seeders, and then for some reason, but the more I think about it, the more I'd want it under models. I don't know why I flip-flopped. I don't know why I flip-flopped on that. Originally I went with this. Okay. Executive decision time. Executive decision. We're gonna go top level. We're gonna go top level. I think we got some last minute votes top level, and honestly, that was my initial gut reaction too, and I don't know why I second guessed myself. So we're going top level. All right, top level. And the nice thing actually about top level is it should, yeah, it actually does not, it actually only makes one test fail. In fact, I expected it to make no tests fail. So let's go look at this test. It parses models. Why did it actually pull out seeders? That's very, very interesting. So let's go find out. So let's start there, because we wouldn't want this to like really break anything. So let's go. Let me close this. Hey, Sasha. Let's see here. Okay, so let's go back to Blueprint, and let's figure out it parses models. All right, why does this crap out? Models only. Technically, I said models only, so I really don't want to put that here. So here's what we're going to do. Let's call this seeders, and we'll keep this because this is kind of like, I don't think any of this really matters. Well, you know what? It actually probably does matter. Let's go back and see if they gave us no proposed syntax. Okay, no problem. Let's get some actual nice like model syntax. I think the README's got a decent example. Yeah, there we go. So let's steal the README. It's kind of a known entity. And let's go ahead and do like comment. And it'll have a post ID of ID and content, long text, and user ID of ID. Okay, cool. So belongs to a post, has content, whatever. Cool. And then, you know what? Let's go ahead and do an approved Boolean. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll just make post and comment, and this will be our seeders bit. So we would want to make sure that this parses cedars, which of course it will, but let's do it anyway. Okay, so it parses cedars. We'll change this to, whoops, we'll change this to cedars. So we're just kind of starting, all the way at the top, moving our way in. So we've got post. Let's bring this up and close that. So we have title, and it's just going to be this stuff. And we've got a bunch of stuff here. So we have, you know what? This is kind of a fool's errand. Let's get craftier with this. All right. Let's bring that over. Copy that. Boom. Comma. It's actually not a comma, it's an arrow. That's better. And then same thing up here. Let's take this and clean this up. All right, so we've got arrow, close, comma, format that. There we go. Okay, so that's what we expect for the models section. Kind of long, but that's okay. It's always good to beef up our tests. And then this would simply be not even an array. It would just be post comment. So we would expect this to just straight up pass because it's actually just lexing the YAML. There's no special, or sorry, we're not even lexing yet. We're just parsing the YAML. So there's really nothing special about this just yet. So if we run all of our tests again, I would have hoped we were passing. Oh, I left that in the models only. We actually don't want to change that now. Let's drop that out. Let's drop all of our changes out. There we go. All right, let's run that again. Good, everything's passing. Okay, so we have Blueprint. It's already parsing. We have a nice fixture to go ahead and kind of drive all the way down. We've ensured that we're parsing it. We kind of knew that we were, but just to show and demonstrate that we're able to parse a multiple definitions, again, it's always good to kind of beef up those tests. So we did Blueprint. The next thing to do would be to do the lexer. And we actually need to register a new lexer. So what we can do is drive that out with a test. So the way Blueprint works is it parses the YAML. That's pretty straightforward. It just uses Symfony's YAML parser, and it gives us tokens, an array of tokens. And then those tokens get sent to a lexer to be turned into more or less what you could technically call an abstract syntax tree. It's not a lot of syntax in Blueprint because it's just a bunch of, simple YAML comma separated lists, but theoretically, if you were to strictly compile or interpret this with a grammar, these are just the terms you would use. So I call it a lexer. The lexer turns that into, objects, whether it be a PHP object like this model, or it's just a statement object is another thing. So again, all the terms we see, it might turn that into like where is this models statement? Yeah, like a dispatch statement. And a dispatch statement has just a bit more information in it. So it's not just raw strings or raw PHP arrays. It actually has and turns those tokens into something that makes a little more sense. And then eventually those tokens are passed, or the tree is passed to a series of generators. And those generators, using these objects, can then generate code. So for example, if we look at a job, it has a job name and potentially data that you pass to the job. And then every statement in this case has an output, which really just says, okay, take the job name, tack on -- dispatch, and then if you have data, build parameters as a comma separated, map of, $ variables effectively. So again, we see how easy it is once you kind of break all this up. So that's how it's broken up. So what we need to do now is to make a lexer, first of all. Right now we have a controller, a model, and a statement lexer. We need to make a cedar lexer. Very simple. So I'm going to copy the statement lexer because I feel like it's going to be most like that. Yeah, I think that's fair. So let's copy this, not statement, sorry, Cedar lexer, and let's go ahead and fire up a test for this. So let me just finish this out, Cedar lexer, and let's get a test going and we'll start kind of ripping things out here. So if I go down, we've already got a fixture. Let's go into my lexers, and again, we'll copy the statement lexer just so I don't have to set up all the PHP unit, classes and so forth. So we'll do a Cedar lexer, and anywhere we say statement lexer, we can just do Cedar lexer, and then we want to set up a new Cedar lexer. That's fine. It returns nothing without statements. So let's say Cedar's token. So of course, if I send it nothing, you get nothing. And then now here's where we'd actually want to write real stuff. So I'm going to get rid of all the rest of this code. And let's start here to actually build this out. Okay, so you're going to get some tokens when you have, it returns a render statement. Wait, did I forget to return something? No. Here we go. So it returns, what is this going to return token-wise? Let's actually look at the model lexer, because it's, from that perspective, it's a little bit closer. Whoops, model lexer test. It's a little bit closer to this. So it returns nothing without model tokens. So we probably want to return a Cedars, an empty Cedars actually is what we want. And then we want like an it returns Cedars. So let's do that. Okay, so we want to say here up top, we would actually want to return Cedars because we now have a new top level object, but we would want to return an empty array. So if I passed in an empty tree to analyze and there were no Cedar tokens, I would return you a empty Cedars tree. Okay? And then it returns, what did we say for the model lexer? Models? Yeah, we'll just say it returns Cedars. And then when I pass in, what are we passing in here? A set of tokens? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so when we say Cedars, we would say something like post. Let's just do a real simple one here. And ideally what I would want to do here is, this is kind of tricky. This is kind of tricky. I would want to say post. Yes. It's a real simple lexer actually. I'm thinking, the reason I'm pausing is I'm thinking ideally I would return a reference to the model object, but at the lexer level you don't have the full tree yet. So I really can't be that good with it just yet. Which means that the Cedar generator is going to have to be a little smarter at looking at the model, pairing these names up with the model. So the funny thing is I really don't even need like a lexer that much. But anyway, let's keep going. Let's keep going. I'll demonstrate that when we see. Okay, so we analyze the subject, we get actual back, we expect that it's an array of one thing, it would just be the Cedars, and then there's not going to be an instance of anything, much more like this. We would actually do something more along these lines. So we would say something like, let's close this down. So we would actually get back actual Cedars would be 1, a count of 1, and then we would expect assert same on Cedars to be post, and that's it. It would just be that. So let's do it. So we would expect this to explode for 2 reasons. One, we have no Cedars because again, the lexer is not registered. So the nice thing about this is that I don't really parse anything here yet. Or sorry, I don't really wire anything up with Blueprint yet, so this is kind of just allowing us to test this a little bit in isolation. This is actually more of a unit test, and then we'll write a fixture test that goes all the way through to actually generate the seeders themselves. So I heard a few comments come across. Let me check that out. Hey Nuno, what's going on? Why aren't you building Pest? Sorry, I'm not using Pest. I need to get access to that. Hopefully you're getting close to your goal. If not, I guess I'll have to jump in and try to get you over the mark. I'm excited to check it out. Okay, so let's get back to this. Let's bring up our seeder lexer. And right now we're just analyzing some tokens, and of course we really don't need to do anything like we're doing here for these statements. So again, even though I copied the statement lexer, this is a bit more like the model lexer. So let's just reference it, for example. It's going to be a little bit cleaner here. So we're going to go ahead and create a registry, and we're going to probably want to loop over those and actually build out the seeder and then return the registry. So I'm going to copy this just to get us a little more in line. Again, I normally don't like copying code, but we have the tests kind of powering us, so we're going to do that. So by default, automatically we would want to return seeders, and just to demonstrate kind of one test passing at a time, let me take out what we don't need and comment what's unfinished. So I should expect to see one passing test now. When we send in empty tokens, we would get the empty seeders back. So we can test that right now. So let's copy this seeders test reference. And we get that one now. That first one's passing, but we still have a failure on the second one. It returns seeders. So let's get that going. And so the simplest thing that we can possibly do right now is basically loop over the seeders and put them in seeders and basically add that to the array. So we could just add the definition. Whoops, not the double definition. What do they call that? Interpolation? Invalid argument, seeders is what we're called. And there we go, we're both passing. So, are we done yet? No, we're not done yet. I kind of did this on purpose just to be a little bit better about test driving these, even though we wrote 2 tests at one time. We can't just take the definition. If we remember back to our seeders blueprint file, we can actually pass in a comma separated list. So I want to write one more test for comma separation that's going to theoretically break the first test and force us to do kind of a better job. So it returns seeders, and we'll say something like it returns seeder or multiple seeders, something along those lines. And now we'll pass in something more akin to what our ultimate blueprint draft file looks like. So we have seeders, post, and comment. And now we would expect the value to be 2 and it to match comment. And let's run this. And supposedly it's passing, which is interesting. How is that auto passing? That is surprising. Let's var dump definition is actually comma separated. YAML shouldn't parse that automatically. That's weird. Let's check out definition. Maybe I'm crazy. Yeah, see, it's post and comment. Post and comment. Wait a second. That's not actually how it parsed it. I passed it in that way. Limitations of unit testing. That's not actually how it gets parsed. If we go back to our blueprint, I've made this mistake before, and I've seen some PRs that make this mistake too, so let me take a second on it real quick. It parses seeders. Notice that the parsing that happens actually was not an array like I kind of wanted it to be in my mind. So even though this was auto passing just a second ago, actually I didn't expect that to pass, which is why I got confused. It's because I'm passing in tokens the way I think it's going to be when it's parsed, but it's actually not that way. I still need to lex it into an array. You would actually just get post. So let's actually make sure that that is correct. you would actually get something more like this as your tokens that come in. This matches Blueprint. So again, nothing necessarily wrong with unit testing, but I kind of, in isolation, I made the mistake when I was setting up my test to not strictly match what the parser did. So from an integration test, you would never have had the opportunity to make that mistake. You would have, been sending it down the same all the way through, but I kind of did a little quote-unquote typo when I was setting this up over here. So let's run this again, and now we should see some failures. Yes, so we have invalid arguments applied to for each, because that's not how any of this works. Okay, so if not empty tokens seeder, I wonder why we're doing the not empty there. Again, shouldn't have probably copy and pasted this. And in fact, there's really no reason for a for each. We really just need to turn seeders. Yeah, I mean the not empty's fine. It's just an optimization. It's no big deal. This we could do something like this. Analyze. I think we have something. It's not analyze update, but it's basically analyze. Let's just call it definition, and we'll pass in. What is this? Tokens seeder. So again, this isn't an array like some of the other stuff we've been looping over. Seeders is just a one-line definition that's comma separated. So we just need to parse out the comma separation, which I know that I've done a bunch of times in this parse with effectively, where we split stuff up based on this if empty with. So the only reason I'm going to keep it broken out is because it's already kind of broken out anyways. I know this analyze update statement does the whole preg split on any kind of spacing that's happening here, so I really just want to return this. So let's change this to return, and we'll say something like analyze definition. You know what? I think I'd rather call that value. I think I call it value in the documentation, like what you pass. So let's change this to value, and I should be able to get rid of all the rest of this crap. So again, we copied a really large statement lexer, but not really a reason to do that. Okay, cool. So now we have post and then something empty. That's kind of interesting. And then we have one expected to. So a little farther along, we have some failures though. So let's see what's going on here. So let's just var dump tokens seeders to see what's happening. Whoops. All right, we just get post and then we get post comments. So what we're getting actually looks right. So instead, let's var dump what this returns, because maybe I made an assumption about that regex that is not correct. Okay, so this parses out blank and blank, and that's because I'm not passing seeders. There we go. That's what you get for copy paste. We could have written that a lot faster, just starting from scratch. Don't copy paste. Moral of the story. Okay, cool. So we are running now. We got rid of the var dumps. And there we go. We have everything we want. Our lexer's good. So now we should be able to actually generate this because it's going to be part of the syntax tree. So now we can go work on our seeder generator, and the circle of blueprint will be complete. I hear some chit chat coming across. Let's check it out. Yeah, seeders versus seeders. Thank you, Adrian. Definitely got me there. Okay, let's make a let's not copy paste this time. Let's go and make a generator, and we're gonna make a new file, a seeder generator test, and we already have PHP. And I'm not going to copy any of the internals. I'm just going to copy this first top part just so I don't have to write that again. I think that part is safe. So let's change this to my seeder generator. and we'll close that out the right way. And we should have a valid file now, and let's use PHP Storm to generate that class. So blueprint generators, Cedar blueprint generator, good. Let's make sure it put it in the right spot, and it did. Okay, so just not going to copy paste, but just using this as a understanding of what we need to do to set things up. So we want to add a reference to Blueprint because, again, we want to actually fire up Blueprint, and we're going to do a full-on integration test by passing it our Cedar's draft file, and we're going to have to mock out the files, and our subject is, of course, the thing that we're testing. In this case, it won't be the it'll be the Cedar generator, yes. So we want this, but we want to set it up to do these things. So I'm gonna write this out longhand again as reference for those that potentially, want to build some kind of new syntax. They want to make some kind of new lexer and statement, whether it's a package or whatever. So I'm gonna write this out and we'll talk it through. So I'm not gonna copy paste it because we saw the issues last time. But also again as a full example, so I can point people to this part of the video and say, okay, here's how you would register and set up a generator. So we're going to do some test setup, and we definitely want to call parent setup. That's all fine. And what we want to do is we want to make a new instance of Blueprint. So we want to say this Blueprint equals new Blueprint, and that should be fine. And we're going to add this as a field, and it's Blueprint. So let's just keep this as reference over here. So we made our new Blueprint. All right, that's good. And then, of course, we're going to want to reference or register our Cedar lexer, so we get the right setup where we're actually now saying, okay, look, go ahead and parse out that new Blueprint. What is this? This is a lexer. Oh, it's not. How did I get capital B? I need to find out what's a capital P because that's wrong. Lexers, and then Cedar lexer. And does it take? It doesn't take anything. Good. Okay, so we register the lexer. That's going to set us up to do the parsing we just test, or not the parsing, but the conversion to a tree. And then, of course, for Blueprint, we want to register the generator, which is the thing we're about to do. So we're going to register the generator, and that's going to be this subject. And that's that. And let's go ahead and add this field. And this will be a var of the Cedar generator. All right, and we need to instantiate this. How do I, whoa, hey there. I forgot the shorthand for that. I think this, no. Whatever, we'll write it ourselves. So this subject equals new, what is it? It is a Cedar generator, and the Cedar generator should take a reference to files because it's going to access the file system to output code and read code and all that kind of stuff, read in the stubs. So that's why we need to fake that out so we can actually control and not actually have it write to the file system. So this is where we bring in files, and we're going to initialize that field as well. And this, what did we call this? This is a mockery mock. Yes, okay, so we're not mocking anything specifically, which is interesting. I thought we would have to mock the file system, but that's okay. All right, so the Cedar generator does not actually have that, which is why this is not liking us. And why is this not liking us either? Expected Blueprint contracts. Okay, so again, our Cedar's kind of all not set up. Our Cedar generator's not set up right here because it doesn't have the right extensions and whatever. So technically speaking, this is a good failing test already. But before we generate that, let's kind of copy this output generates nothing for an empty tree kind of thing. Okay, so we're going to bring this in. We shouldn't load up any of the migration stuff just yet. So we're actually going to want a Cedar stub eventually. So when we pass in basically nothing for our Cedars, we would expect there to be nothing output and I'm going to take this out for now because we shouldn't need that. So output writes nothing for a let's do this. Output generates nothing for empty tree. All right, let's run all of our tests. We have an exception. Argument 1 passed the blueprint register generator must implement. Okay, so again, good failure already. We kind of knew that from PHP Storm's bit. So we want to say extends, not faker generator, no, implements. Sorry, implements blueprint generator contract. And let's auto-generate the stubs, and that should give us everything we need. All right. And let's just not run every test we have. Okay, so the return value of output must be of type array, none returned. So the simplest thing we can do is return an empty array. And we're passing. Good, so that demonstrates, again, just doing the simplest thing, actually setting this up, driving this out. We got errors for, again, we're not implementing the correct interfaces and so forth. So just to prove that, we are implementing generator, and let's make sure we're correct here. Okay, so we're not even setting files yet because we're not using it. So let's actually go ahead and do that here. So we can, we can Alt-Enter and initialize those fields, and we'll copy our little good kid here instead of this doc block. Cool. Okay, that should be good enough to get us started. So we can close down that, and let's bring this off to the right. Now, I guess the question is, first of all, we're going to have a stub, so we could probably go make that, but let's write the test. Let's write the test for it first, and then we'll get back to the stub. So we're going to want a test pretty similar to this. Let's see, output generates cedar. And this is just the simplest version of the test. So in this case, we're going to read a stub, and this will be the cedar stub, and it should pull in the cedar stub. And this time, we are going to get some stuff back. So what we would expect here is that we created a... What would we create here? We would create a database. Cedars, is that the right? I always forget. Is it cedars or cedar? Laravel. Close enough. Database. Seeds. Totally had that wrong. Okay, cool. So, why do we call it? We call it a cedar, but it's in seeds. Interesting. Okay, cool. So seeds, and then in this case, what are we passing in? Output. We don't want to pass in an empty thing this time. We want to we're actually going to pass in the parsed version of our blueprint draft file. So let's do that. Let's do. So this would be, when you generate a cedar, does it automatically do plural or singular? I don't think it's automatic. I think when you make a cedar, you actually have to, you give it the full name, I think. Let's just go to Confident Laravel and find out real quick. PHP artisan make cedar, I think, and then user. See what it does. Yeah, see, you give it the full class name, so there's no explicit convention or helpfulness that the make command does for you. So the question would be, is it, post table cedar? Do we just call it user cedar? The class name? Again, I don't want to go against convention. Blueprint's all about convention, but there are none that come with Laravel. So, going to poll the audience again. If anybody's still out there watching, let me know what your preference is. I think the common pattern would be something like this. It would be something along those lines. But part of me kind of likes, you know, post seeder. I mean, you're seeding a database table, so again, I think this is the very, very common convention to do. So that might just be what it is. So yeah, I'll leave it like that for now. Okay, let's bring up that migration. But again, feel free to jump in the chat and tell me what you think. Let's bring up what we're doing here. So we're outputting the tree, and this is where we actually, there we go. This is where we actually parse some stuff out. So let's actually borrow this just for a second, and we'll review this time a little more carefully. Okay, so we're going to expect to output to the file system our exact path here. So this would be something like expected path or whatever. So path, and we'll var this off to path. So let's make a variable called path, and we will take this and put it up top. Okay, and then the fixture is going to be our blueprint fixture, right? So the fixture is definitions. What do we call that? Seeder? Yeah, definitions seeders dot blueprint. I don't know why I called those .bp. They really are draft YAML files, but I mean I get why I gave them a different name, but anyway. Definition. Oh wait, no. This is the seeders post. There we go. So this would be post table seeder.php. Sorry, this is why we're reviewing this. Okay, so the file system should receive put with the path of what we're saying, and then the actual fixture would be what we expect to generate. So this is our expected generated post table seeder. Nice. And then the tokens that come in are actually the definition. So the definitions seeders.bp, that's the definition. And then we're going to pass that to Blueprint to analyze those tokens. That gives us that integration test. We get the tree back, and the tree is what we should expect to send in to our output. And we actually should get back an array of paths, in this case, path, and then the other path of database seeds comments table seeder.php. And in fact, I'm just going to inline these. There's really no reason to set them. And so we're actually, let's just make this a full-on test of both of them. I think that's well enough tested. And we'll say something here like comments and comments. There we go. All right, I'm hearing some chats come across. Let's see what's up. Okay. Seeders versus seeders. Let's see here. Maybe the docs should, some example for seeder names should count as official convention, I guess. Yeah, I'll definitely be updating the docs, of course, with this new seeder generation bit. I think the default is post table seeders. Yeah, I would name it just post seeder. Ah, come on, people. Tiebreaker. Okay. I think as much as I probably don't follow it myself that often, I would believe that the convention is probably posts. It's probably the table name, table seeder suffix, and you know, all studly cased. So I think this is kind of the, you know, unspoken convention. Even though I would probably generate comments seeder, you know, even though Adrian, I probably agree with you. Oh wait, if you look at the Laravel docs, they also, oh, do they truly say that? If the docs say it, then that's what we're going to follow. There, I can't type. There we go. Let's see. Writing cedars. User cedar. There it is. It doesn't matter to me. It makes my life easier to not have to pluralize it at all, because then I'm just taking the model name, suffixing it with cedar, and it's done. Yeah, they do. You're right. Let's do it. Let's do it. We're fixing it. We're fixing it, peeps. All right, so anywhere I have plural S table can go away. All right, cool. All right, for this to run, we're going to have a lot of issues. So let's just demonstrate that. Cannot open files, cedar generator test. What did I break? Cedar generated test. What? Oh, I'm in confident Laravel. Duh. There we go. Okay, file, get stubs, cedar stub is not there, so that's our first issue. So let's go generate that cedar stub. So we can just call this, let's just copy the event, call it cedar stub, and let's go look. Let's actually go back to confident Laravel. Let's cat out database seeds user. Whoops. Stop it. Let's cat this out. That way we get pretty much what Laravel gives you by default, and we'll change this. There is no namespace. This is our dummy class. It's going to extend cedar. We're going to run blah, 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 and then this. Okay, so now the final question is, what do we want to generate here inside of run? We're going to leave that comment. Is that what Laravel has? There's no space there. So we're going to leave that comment. What do I do in these other ones? I think I have ... Don't I? No. Definition. Let's do that. Let's just make it, well, I keep calling it definition. Properties. Well, I call it what it is based on the context. I'm just trying to figure out what I want to call. Yeah, see here, I think I just have it be empty. All right, we're going to leave it empty in line with Laravel. So we need to replace dummy class, and then we need to replace this. And this is really what's up for discussion. So let me jump ahead a little bit while I'm generating these other fixtures. But the point is that if we go back and we run this, we should start getting a lot of issues here. So let's make dir on test fixtures cedars, and then we're going to pb paste to test fixtures cedars, same thing, / post cedar.php, and then we'll do the same thing for, oh crap, for user. Let's rm that and do it again with a capital U this time. All right, let's go check those out and finish the discussion. So if we go back to our fixtures, cedars, post table cedar, so this should be post cedar, good. And then, so here's what's up for debate. I think the simplest thing to do would just be like, again, we can assume that we generated the factory, and the factory is going to have an example of the definition you would want to seed your database with. So the simplest possible thing would be something along the lines of like, you know, app, posts, class, and then like, you know, just make 5 of them and create those. Like, right now, that's probably the simplest thing to do. The alternative would be, you know, generating 5 empty DB insert statements where you write your own whatever. I think that's a little ugly. Again, it's up for debate. Let me know what you think. And again, we can always extend upon the cedar syntax, but I think this is the simplest thing that possibly works and still provides value. So again, feel free to disagree with me in the chat. Let me know what suggestions you might have instead, but for now, I'm going to move forward with this. Oh, it's actually not user. I don't know why I called it that. That's a comment seeder, and let's change this name as well. Comment seeder. All right, cool. So, don't want to PB paste. Let's go back and run our tests. Good. Now we're actually getting an output because created is not being returned as an array, which makes sense because we're not really generating anything yet. So let's see what people are saying. Call the factory for a couple times. Yeah. Yeah, we'll just default to 5. I think 5 records is an example of many. 3 is probably enough to be fair. So I'm open to whatever, but let's start there. So I think everything's set up in our test. So let's actually go start writing our generator now. So when a generator comes in, you effectively get multiple trees or whatever here. So let's go take a look just at like something like the migration generator so you can see what's going on here. So we basically have output, we load in the stub, we loop over the models, and we effectively build them out and add them to created and then return the output. So what we can do here to follow suit is basically we can do output equals this, and I feel like this is, well, no, output's fine. We can say output, and we want to bring in our stub, so in the interest of time I am going to copy this now that we're armed with the correct test, and this is going to be the seeder stub, and then we're going to want to, we don't need to do anything with the timestamps, we are going to for each, and we're going to output some stuff. So let's for each, and we don't really need to do anything with the path. That should be pretty easy peasy. Did I not copy the right stuff? Let's copy the right stuff this time. All right, so for each seeders, there's nothing special about the path. So we would really just say something, or well, that's fine. We'll say get path. And each one of these is a model. That's true. We don't need to do anything with timestamps. It's not like migration, so it's not timestamped. And then we would want to populate the stub with the model that we said, and then we want to add that to the path to the created output. And we don't need to track anything else, so we should be able to return that. And then let's generate these 2 little guys. So we'll say something like add method here to generate the path, and that's really just going to return database seeds and then dot model dot seeder dot php, right? That's pretty simple. And then for populate stub, we're probably going to want this to be, we're probably going to want to borrow again from migration generator just because that's a bit of a, it's a bit of an involved method. So let's copy that. And it's not actually a model right now. This is just a string. So let's reference that. We want the class name. We're not going to do anything with that. And our definition is really just the empty quote. So build, yeah, see, it's not even build definition. It's like, I don't know, we'll just call it build. It's kind of ugly. So get class names, pretty straightforward. That's just going to return the model dot seeder. That's the class name, so dummy class. And then build is just going to return takes the model. So this really is just going to return, and again, this is probably going to need some more work. This is really just going to return in its simplest form factory. Again, this is a really naive implementation. Let's just get it done though for today. Class 5 create colon. Cool. And we're going to print out model. So again, not everyone is going to be using the app namespace. It could be a nested model. There's 19 different things that are make this kind of a naive generation. But again, in the interest of time, to kind of keep the live stream at an hour, let's see how close this gets us. Okay, so we actually passed our second test, but our first test is failing now because, and if we remember, this seeder generator test, I actually commented out this stub. So by default, it actually loads up the stub even when it doesn't need to. I have two options. One, I could go back over here and I could say something like if empty, empty seeders, or sorry, tree seeders, then return, I'm not being able to type today. There we go. There. And now we pass. So just a little guard clause there if we wanted to. The other migrations or generators don't do that. I mean, the for each isn't going to do anything anyways, but I mean, I guess technically speaking, there's a micro optimization that you're not hitting the file system to load in the seeder stub when you don't need to. So we'll leave it just because it makes the test pass. Okay, there we go. We have seeders now. So let's PR this though for real. So I'm going to do a git checkout -b. I should have done this before. Seeders, or we'll do something like generate seeders, and bring that over here. And let's go ahead and do a git add -p and just kind of review quickly. And we'll open this PR and call this done. Okay, so it parses seeders. This was just a really, I wouldn't call it unnecessary, but just an extra test to demonstrate that, the seeders were top level. It didn't interfere with models. It wasn't part of the models, lexing, yada, yada, yada. So we'll say yes. And no new line and end of file. Okay, that was just a little thing that PHP Storm helped us with, because I guess there was no new line at the end of that draft file. Everything else is entirely new and tested, so I'm not going to review it independently, so we'll just do everything there looks good, so we'll just do a git add dot, even though I'm not a big fan of that. So we've got our stubs, we've got our lexer, we got our generator, we have a generator test, a lexer test, a new definition for that seeder, and then the expected output for that seeder when we do our full-on code generation. Very nice. Okay, git commit -m, support or generate seeders, database seeders with new syntax. Nice. Git push origin head. Git open. Cool. All right, so let's make a pull request out of this. Generate seeders new syntax. This adds a new top level syntax to generate database seeders, since we have this open. Or no, we don't. laravel.com docs seeders. There we go. Let's just borrow that to generate database seeders. Database seeders for components are for your defined or existing models. The syntax is, let's just copy that from over here. Even better, let's edit this, take that, cancel, for example, blah, 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 blah. Currently, this will generate code which leverages the model factory to create 5 of the model factories. There we go. Cool. And finally, what is this? This closes 198. Geez, almost 200. Closes 198. All right, create pull request. And I'll get this merged in once all those tests pass, but what do we have here? Adrian, call the factory a couple times. Yes, I did. If you really want to go crazy. Yeah, I said you could do db insert. Why do that when we have the factory? I think it's pretty modern convention to leverage the factory. Yeah, run faker 5 times and replace stub with its output. I'm not sure what you mean. You know how to generate the factory. Use this to run faker 5 times and replace stub with this output. I'm not sure what you mean in your last comment, but again, I think this is good enough to start. I'm entirely open to someone extending this, but it provides that initial bit there. Let's take out that dead code that I had. Git commit -m, remove dead code, git push origin head. How did I have? Oh, I bet you, yeah, style CI cleaned me up. All right, whoops, git pull -r. Git pull -r origin. What is this called? Generate seeders. Git push origin head. Generate a real array with real data. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Blueprint really wouldn't be able to do that because anything that it's not going to know what real data is. It would still use the factory data or faker data, and at that point, it's going to generate the same faker data that your factory generates. So again, why generate all that code? This is the simplest thing to do, and just to kind of go full circle, you know, when we look at this post seeder, this gives you a good start. Like, it would be very easy to just drop off 5 and start overriding, you know, whatever you want here, you know, some specific, you know, title for testing or whatever. Like, again, Blueprint's designed to get you there quickly. It's not designed to know, and I mean, you wouldn't want to type all that in YAML. That doesn't make any sense. So, you know, this is a good start. Again, if you think it's lacking, feel free to open an issue, or better yet, a PR to take this even farther. I will fix the name spacing bit here in just a minute, probably even before I merge that. So, because that is a limitation. So I will fix that before merging it. But I appreciate everybody watching the live stream. Again, I'll do it I'll do it next week. Next Thursday. I think it's a good pace to kind of stay on top of these and keep Blueprint fresh and being used as more people use it. So, but hopefully this was a really good example of how to generate new syntax and then generate code from that new syntax. So it'll be a nice reference in the docs, again, which I'll update also too before these get tagged. To kind of point people to if they want to extend Blueprint. And, you know, again, you can obviously extend Blueprint very easily off the existing syntax of models and controllers. And like we talked about earlier with Nova, you know, you can just take the current models. But, you know, now this should give you some ideas too. If you want to generate more, like if you want to make a views section and have that leverage models to make you cruddy views or something in Blade templates or Tailwind or whatever, you know, these are all options. Again, you could make a Nova section. All you have to do is register a lexer and then a generator to output the code. The lexer parses them into whatever PHP objects are helpful for you to generate the code. That might be a simple array like we've shown here with the seeder, or it might be, you know, a model value object that you can more easily call stuff on, or the statement objects. So all of the examples are in the code base. There's already a community example of a package that's extended Blueprint and registers its own lexers and generators. So this should give you even more ideas and more tools to do that. So again, thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you all next week. Have a good weekend.